everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to sow, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. Today is Sunday, November 13th, and I'm Ashley Grieve. I am a board member, the church treasurer, and a youth group advisor. UUCA is an intentionally welcoming congregation to people of all backgrounds, races, genders, sexual orientations, and abilities. Whether this is your first time joining us or your 500th time, perhaps your first time after a long break, whether you're joining us in person or virtually through our online services, thank you for your participation today. And happy Veterans Day weekend. Veterans Day is a chance to let America's veterans know that we appreciate them and to consider the policies and programs that our veterans need and deserve every day of the year. A special and warm welcome if we have any veterans among us today or watching online. I hope today's service inspires you to build community both within and without these walls. You can start, if you are able to join us in person today, at coffee hour following the service, which will be just outside the sanctuary and to the left. I hope to see you there. Thanks and welcome.
Good morning. I'm Gay Gibson-Chima, one of your worship associates, and I'm just really happy to be here in this sanctuary with you this morning. Let's greet one another, shall we? Turn to somebody near you and make them feel good about this day. Our call to worship. On this particular Sunday, I'm drawn to the words of Amanda Gorman, the youngest poet ever to deliver an inaugural poem. These are the final stanzas from her 2021 poem, The Hill We Climb. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every nook of our nation and every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it.
Each week, we light a candle of compassion in solidarity with those experiencing violence or loss, those grieving or lonely. This week, we light it as well in solidarity and gratitude for our veterans and for the families of our veterans as well, all those who support those who have served. We pray and work for a world of more peace and a world of healing.
Good morning. I'm Kristen Keller, another one of your worship associates this morning. I invite you to join us in lighting our chalice. The words of unison are in your order of service. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world. I invite you to sing We'll Build a Land. It's in our gray hymnal, hymn number 121. We will do verses 1 and 4.
Dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by love, may find peace. Where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come build a land where mantles and praises resound from spirits once and weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come build the land, my people we seek. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Well, I would like to invite some of my smaller friends to join me on the chancel if you would like to. We're welcome to bring your grown-up with you if you want, or to come on up by yourself. I'm bringing a squash with me, so whatever works. Come on up, come on up, come on up. All right, see, yeah, once someone starts going, now, there we go. Okay, all right. And see, have a seat on the chancel. Oh, look at these cowboy boots. I love it. It's definitely boot season. Come on and sit down. That's perfect. I've got the squash. You've got yourselves. We just need some storytellers, and we have some special storytellers today for us. Come on up. Olivia and Marina are going to tell us the story of Sophie's squash. So here we go. You know what I think? I think I'm going to have you sit in a chair. Marina and Olivia, I'm going to have you stand. How does that sound? Do you think you can manage that? Okay, great. So right here, that's perfect. And I'm going to come on down and hang out with you, and we're going to pass this squash so that we can all hold it, because as you're going to hear, it's really quite nice to hold. So we're going to learn more about that. Take it away, Olivia. Cameron, can we have the...
Hello. Okay. This is called Sophie's squash. One bright fall day, Sophie chose a squash at the farmer's market. Her parents planned to serve it for supper, but Sophie had other ideas. It was just the right size to hold in her arms, just the right size to bounce on her knee, just the right size to love. I'm glad we met, Sophie whispered. Good friends are hard to find. At home, Sophie used markers to give her squash a face. Then she wrapped it in a blanket and rocked it to sleep.
It's really quite nice. We're just checking out the squash, Olivia. It really does feel nice. You can bounce it. It's very smooth. I know.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I'm making you
When
laugh.
it was time to make supper, Sophie's mother looked at the squash. She looked at Sophie. I call her Bernice, Sophie said. I'll call for pizza, said her mother. I like pizza myself.
You can't eat Bernice, right? No.
I could. Could it be okay? Maybe? I think he's a little gross for me.
If you eat Bernice, I will never forgive you.
You thought I sound like an Alexa. After that, Bernice went everywhere with Sophie, to story time at the library, to visit other squash at the farmer's market, to practice somersaults by the garden. Every night, Sophie gave Bernice a bottle, a hug, and a kiss. Okay. We hope she'd love vegetables, Sophie's mother told her father. Shh, Sophie said. Bernice is sleeping. I don't know how that yet. I don't know how they sleep, but okay. Sweet Pea, Sophie's mother said one morning as they made blueberry waffles. Bernice is a squash, not a friend. If we don't eat her, then she'll get mushy and gross. Let's bake her with marshmallows. Won't that taste yummy? Wait, no, I'm not done. Don't care. Don't listen, Bernice, Sophie cried. Squashes do not listen. That's your PS. Remember this. The afternoon, Sophie's father took her shopping. Sugar beet, he said. Bernice is a squash. Why don't you pick a nice toy to play with instead? But the trucks were way too hard. The dolls were too soft. Sophie clutched Bernice tightly. No thanks, she said. I have everything I need. After supper, Sophie's parents called a family meeting. Bernice napped in Sophie's lap. Okay. Why don't we donate Bernice to the food pantry? Before she rots, her father suggested. Sophie shook her head. Bernice will last forever. So many twists and turns in this story. Okay. Bernice. Bernice seemed a little blotchy, said Sophie's dad on the way to the library one day. She looks perfect to me, Sophie replied. At story time, some kids pointed and stared. What's that spotty thing? A boy asked. Her name is Bernice, and she's a squash, Sophie said, with freckles. Maybe Bernice should stay home next time, Sophie's mom suggested. Why? Sophie asked. She wasn't the one being rude. Still, as winter neared, Sophie notices some changes. Bernice seemed softer, and her somersaults lacked the usual style. Visiting friends will cheer you up, Sophie said. At the farmer's market, squash were everywhere. Firm, squishy, regular stuff. What keeps a squash healthy? Sophie asked a farmer. It's simple, really, he said. Fresh air, good, clean dirt, and a little love. Well, Sophie thought, I got all of that. I don't know about that one.
Olivia, keep going with the story.
Okay. At home, Sophie cleared leaves from Bernice's favorite spot. She made a bed of soft soil, tucked Bernice in, and kissed her goodnight. Get better soon, she whispered. That night, while Sophie slept, the wind whistled and tiny snowflakes fell. When she awoke, the world was covered in white. Do you think Bernice is cold under there? Sophie asked her mother. I'm sure she's warm and cozy under her snow blanket, her mother replied. Sophie gazed out the window all morning. She was still there in the afternoon when her father came home with a surprise. You need a friend, he said. Meet Ace. Ace was nice but boring. He just swam around in his bowl. But during the long winter, Sophie discovered that Ace was a superb silent reader who did fabulous flip turns. And he always listened politely when she talked about Bernice. Bernice was great at keeping secrets. When snow finally melted, Sophie rushed to the garden. The only thing there was a small green sprout. It looked strangely familiar. Bernice, Sophie said, how was your winter?
Let's listen to the story.
After that, Sophie, Ace, and Bernice ate lunch together every day. One bright summer morning, Sophie somersaulted across her yard, landed by a garden, and stared in disbelief. Bernice had grown two tiny squash. Wow, Sophie told them, you look just like your mom. Soon, Bonnie and Baxter were just the right size for Sophie to hold in her arms and bounce on her knee. Just the right size to love.
Well, Olivia and Marina, thank you for telling that story. Thank you all for listening and for visiting with Bernice, our squash. And we are going to send you now on your way to your classes as we sing you off. Have a wonderful morning.
Peace to you on your way. May you grow in love each day. Meeting new friends and opening your mind to the wonders of the world you will find. To the wonders of the world you will find.
Sometimes we are all grateful for a squash to hold. It really does feel very nice in your arms. or grateful for a soft blanket, or for each other's hands to hold. This past week, I have been following many of you on Facebook or conversations we've had as we have watched, perhaps with anxiety, the election results unfold and unfold and unfold and unfold. They still do. I have been grateful this week for the wisdom of colleagues. And so I bring to you words from Reverend Ashley Horan, who works for the Unitarian Universalist Association, and who wrote this poem and prayer in the last week and invited all of us to share in the congregations that we serve. I'll share just the end of Ashley's poem and then invite you into the prayer that she has created for us. Oh, how we have prayed this season, each letter a hymn of praise to interdependence, each door knock a gratitude for shared imagination, each phone call a vow that we belong to one another. So too have we been changed, agnostics and organizers, supplicants and strategists, ordained into co-creation, anointed with responsibility, restless with the knowing that another world is possible if we would make it so. There are many praying seasons, a daily practice demanded by a world in need of faithful labor and incarnated prayer. Yet tonight we pray again, it certainly can't hurt, for mercy, for tenacity, for hope. Reverend Ashley Horan gives us these words of prayer as we work for voting rights and safety and continue that work in weeks to come. Spirit of liberation, both here and beyond us, your extravagant love surrounds us. Right here, right now, your will toward freedom beckons. Give us this day a taste of hope that all may not be lost. Forgive us our apathy, our spite, our fear, so we may fight for those who will come after us. Save us, we pray, from forsaking our future, and deliver us from passively awaiting miracles. But grant us the courage to create the conditions of possibility. For ours is the kingdom and the power to write the story, now and forever. Amen.
Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón, cántale tu compasión, sopla a volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraígame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
A reading, Sonnets to Orpheus, Part 2, 12, Rainier Maria Rilke. Want the change. Be inspired by the flame where everything shines as it disappears. The artist, when sketching, loves nothing so much as the curve of the body as it turns away. What locks itself in sameness has congealed. Is it safer to be gray and numb? What turns hard becomes rigid and is easily shattered. Pour yourself like a fountain. Flow into the knowledge that what you are seeking finishes often at the start, and with ending begins. Every happiness is the child of a separation it did not think it could survive. When I asked my UU friends what they thought about our theme for this month, about change, they had many different responses. My favorite response was simply, "Ah!" Faced with changes, many of us feel anxiety. We associate change with loss, with family worries, political disappointments, job woes. We bargain with change, begging, "No, not again." Change, one of my dear Covenant Group friends explained, it's like swinging on a trapeze from the old to the new without a net. Change is hard and necessary. When I asked my daughter Anna, I shouted to her in the next room, I said, "What do you think of when I say the word change?" And she said, "Diapers." Change can be an avenue toward self-awareness, though, and even transformation. It can be a move toward justice. But how do we pursue our own personal happiness or a larger justice when the ground beneath us is changing so much, it feels so uncertain? We can try just practicing. When the world-famous cellist Pablo Casals was asked why he kept practicing at age 90, he replied, "Because I think I'm making some progress." But I think he just loved to play. Practicing can actually give us joy. And sometimes very surprising sources can show us how to practice navigating through change. About a year after my husband Ron's sudden death, my then 2.5-year-old granddaughter snugly latched into her car seat in the back of my Honda, began to talk about a big change in her life, her grandpa's death. I audio taped her. I was so eager to capture her exact words. And this morning, I'd like to share her words with you because I think they can show us something, they can teach us something about how to practice navigating through change, through loss, love, interdependence. So I want you to imagine with me a gorgeous summer day, a July day in North Arlington, and the car windows are down, lots of distractions outside, okay? Addie Rose's words. He is big. Grandpa is big. He is bigger than me, and he's bigger than you, and he's so nice. He is. And he's going to cray with me. He's going to draw and play crayons with me. He wants to play crayons with me, and he wants eggs to eat. And he's going to take me to his house. He's so nice to take me to that house, to a different house. He's nice to put me in a house. He's so nice to put me in Grandma and Grandpa's house, and he loves to hold me. He's so funny. He's very funny, and he's so nice. He's funny. Grandpa likes to go on trips with me. Where did the trip go? Maybe it's in Grandpa's house. Maybe it is. Grandpa takes care of me. There are the birds. I heard the birds. I'm not birds. I'm not just anybody. I am Addie Rose. I love Addie Rose. I'm Grandpa's. And I got to go in his arms. Almost a year after her grandfather's death, Addie remembers him in present tense. She wonders where their trips together went. And when the birds distract her, she reflects rather startlingly on how we create our sense of ourselves. She is not bird, she's not just anybody, because she belongs to Grandpa. She's Addie Rose, and she loves herself. Then she shifts abruptly to past tense, right? I got to go in his arms. At the very moment that Addie Rose acknowledges her grandfather's death, she celebrates the grace in that change. The fact that they loved each other, they shared a life, and his life lives on in hers and in her remembrance, just as surely as those purple mums that line the walkway to our sanctuary bloom in remembrance of him each autumn. I strive to practice navigating through change as gracefully as my granddaughter. Scholar Andrew Olinsky speaks of the perceptual simplicity of the child and suggests that like children, we can just notice change. But Addie, it seems to me, goes further. She names the grace embedded in the change and the interdependence that lives on despite the change, which in turn deepens the possibilities of self-love. And that love for ourselves, I would like to suggest this morning, can actually lead us into activism. Some of you know that in an earlier life, I was a professor. My last project focused on Black and white women's activism, and as I was poring over old newspapers, I learned that almost 200 years ago, in July 1832, a 25-year-old free black Quaker, Sarah Douglas, stood in front of a group called the Female Philadelphia Literary Society. She advocated in her speech a love of oneself in the midst of political change as the basis for a renewed anti-racist, anti-human trafficking advocacy. She was actually responding in part to another free black woman named Maria W. Stewart, who had a couple of years earlier in Boston delivered a speech and said that Blacks should feel interested for themselves. But the Bostonian Maria Stewart was an evangelical, and she talked a lot about individual sinfulness and the blameworthiness of the citizenship of the citizens of our nation. And she really aggravated many of her listeners. Sarah Douglas, inspired not by evangelical, but by Quaker and Unitarian ideals, responded with a more rational, expansive vision. She identified the state rather than individual sinners as the roadblock to justice. She called for a compassion for ourselves in the face of shifting political winds, a compassion deepening into a love for each other and a desire to transform the larger community. She asked fellow activists, are we doing enough? Are we still practicing? Like Addie Rose, we can declare that we are not birds. And we're not just anybody. We are people who worship together. Here, we get to go in each other's arms. So let's send our talents and our treasure like confetti out into the larger world, and let's keep practicing.
I invite you to turn in your gray hymnal to hymn number 311 and stand as you're willing and able. Now this is, we call this a 4-pager. So you're going to flip back. We're going to sing verses 1 and 2, and guess what? You are allowed to move. The song is Let It Be a Dance. If you want to dance with your head or your shoulders or your arms or your legs, please feel free to move. Let it be a dance.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. Reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a learn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child's world must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance.
Thank you. Why are you hugging the walls? The day is finally here. We are moving. Change is hard. I'm gonna miss this place, ekes out my son with a quivering lip. Change is not solid like the wall he is gripping. There's so many memories here, he continues. Change is scary. Maybe I'm not in control, is what his body is telling us. Change confronts us with the illusion that old memories will fade and possibly replaced by new ones. Attachment sets in. We can feel both, I hesitantly try to reassure him. Sad to leave and excited to move somewhere new. Really, I'm being the parent who just wants to silver line the moment. I want to release his desperate grip from the wall and tell him to feel non-attachment, a sense of groundlessness. Walk the middle path, as the Buddhist texts tell us. But how does one say that to a tear-stained 9-year-old boy? Change is hard and beautiful, and it can be wondrous and full of hope. Change can contain the wooden nails that provide that strong foundation of that wall, and it can be soft and malleable and spacious enough for us to take a step toward it, to approach it with open arms, to embrace it, to meld into it. As my son continues to hug each inanimate object in the house, holding on to each solid structure as if running in the opposite direction of change, slowly he begins to make those small steps, slowly, in the other direction. He changes course, glancing over his shoulders, scanning every inch of our memory-filled abode before finally closing the door. His big blue eyes, tear-filled, begin to signal a small glint that is open to the possibilities of something else. Though still equipped with what was, but with the belief that something could be greater. Change is hard and beautiful. It can be both. I started thinking more about change, but on a micro level, a personal level, and I started thinking about my years of yoga practice, how every time I arrive on that mat, something has changed, and I must figure out what to do with that. How does the narrative run in my mind? What emotions come up as I sense some kind of change? Recently, I've taken up golf, and for any golfers out there, you know change is a constant. Putting my hands this way, my arms in the right position, that feels weird. I don't like that. I don't want to change. But my result is the same. So if you want a different result, change it. Doesn't it sound so simple? And then when I changed my thinking to the macro level and reflected on these personal practices, I noticed that that kind of practicing comes from a big place of privilege. Yoga, a practice that is mostly used by able-bodied people, typically white women, as we have westernized an original Indian practice. Golf, a sport that is mostly practiced by able-bodied beings and ones usually from a higher socioeconomic status. I am able, I have access, I have an opportunity to practice that change in an environment with little resistance, friction, or discomfort. My health, my housing, my education, my safety is not threatened. So how much of that informs my daily behaviors and actions, which in turn has an effect, a possibly negative effect, on a macro scale? Well, probably much more than I admit to realize. But that's my work, right? That's our collective work. I am humbled and grateful for those who have lovingly and compassionately kept me accountable in that regard and continue to nudge me to keep working on changing these aspects of myself for the betterment of others. This work is hard, but it's been imprinted in the DNA of white folks since at least the establishment of this nation that we do not change. We do not feel discomfort. There is an expectation of others of conformity and assimilation. So to rewrite the script on a cellular level takes work, a consistent devotion to do better, to be better, because the collective is waiting, has been waiting. The author Roy T. Bennett charges us with the thought that change begins at the end of your comfort zone. Well, how willing are we to feel this discomfort? Can't we agree that often running in the opposite direction of discomfort? Who wants to feel that? What are the repercussions? Do we really protect ourselves and our emotions through avoidance? When we try to protect ourselves, who is left unprotected? There are many, unfortunately. For one, the protection of our siblings of the LGBTQ+ community are constantly under siege. We will hear in a few moments from Gerda, a member of PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, and how compassion, love, support, and action is what keeps the wheels of change rolling to justice and not stuck in the quagmire of hate, exclusion, being silenced, and unseen. How does this country resist this weight, this dark cloud like a heavy barometric pressure from consuming us into this bog of inhumanity? How do we combat that entity that, to me, just seems to always loom in the corner? Shaun King, a civil rights activist, reminds us how deep change gets done. He particularly points out in this one political party that Dems took complete control of the governments in Michigan, Maryland, and Massachusetts. That means they control the state house, the state senate, and the governorship. That's how deep change gets done, change on a systemic, institutionalized level. The American journalist Sidney J. Harris once wrote that our dilemma is that we hate change and love it at the same time. What we really want is for things to remain the same, but get better. But we all know that things can't stay the same. In our children's story, which, by the way, our speaker of the children's story was my daughter, so the squash really does not grow far. And we look at how Sophie learned that with Bernice. As much as she wanted Bernice to stay the same, she knew she couldn't. She had to let go. She had the wisdom to know that if she just follows the process, follows something bigger, something will be better, even greater. The power and wisdom of youth is so transformational. If we just watch and listen and follow. So if we are to truly practice change, what does that look like? Change requires commitment. Change requires us to be flexible in our lens in which we image the world. Change requires us white folks to relinquish power and control. Change requires us to release our attachment to privilege when we are so used to initiating and leading. Change to listening and following, and get into some good trouble. And when listening to our musical selections today, I've been struck by some of the lyrics. And we build a land, justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. And in the times they are changing, charging us to admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. And finally, in People Have a Power, I believe everything we dream can come to pass through our union. We can turn the world around. We can turn the earth's revolution. We have the power. People have the power. And I would add, may we create change in the image of all beings, especially those who have not been given the opportunity and access, and to truly have the agency and power that should be basic human rights. Change is hard, and it is necessary. It is both. As we think about change and an action we can take, this month's Share the Plate partner is Metro DC's chapter of PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. The PFLAG group here at UCA has done wonderful work to provide community and support for our LGBTQ siblings, their friends, and family members. It's really important to hear voices and stories from those doing the work. So we are honored to have Gerda Kieswetter speak on behalf of UCA's PFLAG group. Please see your order of service of ways to give. Welcome, Gerda.
Thank you, Kristen. My name is Gerda Kieswetter. Alan and I are longtime members of UCA. We are parents of an adult trans man, and I'm also a longtime leader of the Arlington PFLAG community group. Since this month our topic is the path of change, I want to start with PFLAG, the name of the organization. PFLAG began in the early 1970s when parents of gay and lesbian people decided that they needed to be out and to support their family members, and hence came out together as parents and friends of lesbians and gays. As more people came out, some found that they were attracted to both sexes, bisexual, and then their parents worried and joined. More recently, the pivot has been towards the coming out of children and adults who identify as trans and other non-binary genders, and also expansive sexualities. We welcome all into the original acronym, which really isn't attached to the words anymore. Meanwhile, the media have changed to include more characters that are non-heterosexual and that have non-binary genders, bringing visibility and understanding. And the laws have changed to favor gay and lesbian people more. Also, the Supreme Court decision granting gay marriage. But now, the pushback again, and a lot of it on trans kids in regards to school bathrooms and locker rooms and sports. It's a lot for even supporting parents to contend with. Changes, changes, changes. The focus and worries of parents and other allies of LGBTQ+ people has also changed, and not. All of us worry about keeping our loved ones safe and safe from unfair laws. Many, especially in conservative families and communities, worry that they will face social rejection. Some parents of younger non-binary children can and do allow their children to transition socially with a new name, allowing gender expression in clothes and hairstyles, friends, in school bathrooms and sports. Parents of trans kids nearing puberty have to worry about things like hormone blockers, and for teens and adults, possible surgeries. At PFLAG, our mission stays constant in the light of all of these changes, to support people where they are in the acceptance process of their LGBTQ+ family members, nudge them towards changes, and envelop them in a caring atmosphere. We answer their questions from our own experience, good and not so good. It's amazing how even as every person and every family's journey to acceptance is different, there is so much shared experience that the group works its magic every month. The people who need to be there for each other are. And each PFLAG group, we build community, one step, one person, one meeting at a time. Please know that PFLAG is there for you, for your families and friends of friends, for everyone. You never know when you can help yourself or someone else by coming or sending them to PFLAG. The group email for our chapter is ARL, the beginning of Arlington, .pflag@gmail.com. The website, where you can find a list of all of the Washington area groups, their contact information, and downloadable brochures, is pflagdc.org. It's in your order of service, also in connections. My name is Gerda Kieswetter. I'm in the directory. I'm here most Sundays, although lots of times downstairs, and I'm always happy to see you.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, and you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing. Come senators, Congress, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. And remember you're there to represent us all. Even when the battle raging, we'll shake at your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changing. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend a hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing.
A really special thank you to our all-church band this morning. Amazing music. We need that music, right? Absolutely. Ushers, please come forward. Please join me in the blessing of our offering. The words are printed in our order of service. We bless and receive these gifts, opening our hearts to true generosity. Let us be grateful when we give, be it time, talent, or treasure. Let us be grateful for our needs and the experience of vulnerability. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts to nurture this congregation. Thank you.
Our benediction this morning comes in 3 voices. May you receive it well.
May you find a way through with gentleness and love.
When change comes, may you find your center, breathing through the crashing waves around you.
When change comes, may you be the one creating it, building a land of justice and peace.
May it be so.
Thank you. So we could use everyone's help with this last song. The chorus of this song goes, "The people have the power," and we would like you to respond, "We have the power." So let's try that once here. The people have the power. We have the power. The people have the power. We have the power. The people have the power. We have the power. Good, excellent. And when we get to that point of the song, I think you're all going to handle it really well, but if you feel like standing up, please do. But my dream, it lingered near, in the form of shining valleys, where the pure are recognized, and my senses newly opened. I awakened to the cry that the people have the power to redeem the work of fools upon the meek. The graces shower, it's the creed, the people rule, the people have the power, we have the power, the people have the power, we have the power, the people have the power, we have the power, the people have the power, we have the power. Vengeful aspects became suspect, and bending low as if to hear. The armies ceased advancing because the people had their ear, and the shepherds and the soldiers lay beneath the stars, exchanging visions and laying arms to waste in the dust in the form of shining valleys where the pure air recognized. My senses newly opened, I awakened to the cry. The people have the power. We have the power. The people have the power. We have the power. The people have the power. We have the power. The people have the power. We have the power. Where there were deserts, I saw fountains. Like cream, the waters rise.